The problem with virtual CES is that you don't get to see and handle all the products in person. Well, tell you what, I went out and got 10 of the hottest new laptops of CES. I got them right here, and we are going to talk about it today. I'm Dan Ackerman, and I am here to talk about all the coolest laptops of CES 2021 with Jason Heiner.
All right, Dan, thanks so much. We're here at CES 2021, and we've got a lot of great laptops to talk about. Dan, we're going to talk about the 4 big trends that you've seen in all the laptops this year, and then break down some of the best machines that you've thankfully got in your hands and can show the audience all of the stuff that they can expect coming from this show and that they're going to see throughout the year.
We don't always think about Dell Latitude laptops and other business laptops as the most exciting thing, but Dell's got a bunch of new Latitude updates this year, and because we're all using business laptops so much, I feel like they all actually have something interesting about them. Even this guy right here, this is the Latitude 5000. It's like the entry point in the series. I will say, if you start a new job and this is the laptop you get, you may not be the CEO. I'm just going to say that. But what I like about this, even the basic one, they have put some bioplastic from trees inside this as part of the construction. The back of the lid, that's one of the bulkiest parts of a laptop, and this is 21% bioplastic. And I love that even on the least expensive Latitude model, there's a cool feature like that. So at least you feel like you're making a little progress, and I would love to see this tree-based plastic in a lot more products.
And Dan, can you explain just a little bit, what is bioplastic? You mentioned tree-based plastic. Is there anything else people should know about that?
Yeah, it's usually made from bio waste, in this case trees, but there's an HP and a Lenovo I have here, and I think some of the parts inside those are made from recycled, sea salvage plastic from the sea, and they use that in components inside as well. But first, actually, let me give one more shout out to Dell for the Latitude 9000. This was a big hit at CES last year because it had 5G options, and it was super thin and light, a real premium one. And this is a clamshell. You can also get it in a 2-in-1. But I love that this and a few of the other ones now have a dedicated button. Let me find it right here. This is F9 in this case, but it takes the webcam and it puts a physical shutter over it, not a slide over, not a software cutout. The button is connected to a physical red dot that covers the webcam. And I think if you're on all day in meetings like you and I are, you want to have times when you can make sure that camera is shut off. And that's a nice way that they're emphasizing privacy on commercial laptops, where you really need that for OPSEC, but you also want it because it's in your house now.
Very cool. So your first trend is more businessy laptops for this year. And you mentioned the Dells, but there's also some HPs and Lenovo's you want to talk about too, right? That are part of this trend.
A couple of years ago, there was an HP laptop I liked a lot called the Elite Folio. It had kind of a leather cover stitched to it. It was a Windows laptop, but it had kind of a Surface profile because you could fold it back like a tablet. So now there's a professional version, and this is the HP Elite Folio. It looks like a regular laptop from the front. The back is this leather cover. This is actually vegan leather as opposed to the real leather on the consumer version. I like this better as a longtime vegetarian. And other than that, this is very similar design-wise to the consumer version, which I loved. You take the screen, it tilts like this, then you fold it down like this. There's a stylus inside, and it's got that HP privacy screen, so you can hit a button and it will stop people from seeing into the screen from a side view at an airport or at the next desk over. Not that we sit next to other people at desks anymore, but someday, and I love that it's got this stylus. You can see the stylus that's right there below the screen, and you can just reach in and take it out. The Surface Pro X, I think that's something similar. And then it charges while it's in there too. And I think that is super cool. And that's also a Snapdragon processor with 5G support. We were talking, just to round up our convo about business laptops, there was one I liked last year a lot, and there's a new version of it here. It is this little guy right here. It's the HP Dragonfly. There's also a Dragonfly Max that's bigger. This is just the regular Dragonfly. Now this one, of course, it's a 2-in-1. It's great. What I loved last year, and they still have in this one, is tile tracker support. So you can treat it like a tile. You can click on your tile app or the tile thing. So I always wanted to take one of these and throw it out in the woods and see if I could find it, and I have not actually gone through with that yet, but I love that. But I also love that it's got the physical shutter button that some of the other laptops have, and they've upgraded this. The last one was, 8th gen Intel. Now it's 11th gen. So it was kind of a first gen one last time because it was the first gen. Now it actually feels like a fully finished product, and I think it's one of the sharper looking business laptops. So if you don't want something that's quite so commercial looking, this one's got a great consumer vibe to it, but it's still part of the business line.
That blue is nice. The leather on the folio is really nice too. But as you start to look at these as things that you're spending that much time with, and make a little bit of a statement as you carry it around. Eventually, you're going to carry these things around in business meetings and all of that, and it does make a little bit of a statement.
You know what? I'm going to show you something, and you tell me what you think is different about this laptop from a lot of the other ones we see. I'm just going to lift it up here slowly.
All right.
Okay. You may be able to see it better if I do this.
Okay. Immediately I know it's a Lenovo because of the little red dot in the middle, the little joystick. But beyond that, I'm trying to think maybe tip me off a little bit. 3, 2, 2. What is it?
This is a 3:2 aspect ratio screen, like the business laptops and really even regular mainstream laptops of yore many, many years ago. Then we went to 16:9,
yes.
16:10. Now we're back to the 3:2, and people are loving it because when you're doing work stuff, and this is a ThinkPad, you get a lot more real estate for the kind of stuff you're doing, the spreadsheets and the Word documents.
Yes. Oh, I love that. I'm glad you brought it up, and sorry for being such a bonehead and missing it. But but no, you're right. Like that is one of the things that people for that small group of people that likes iPads over laptops. They're like, I like the 3:2. I like the bigger screen because when you're scrolling through web pages, when you're looking at spreadsheets with a lot of rows, it matters that extra screen depth, vertically is helpful.
And it's super thin as well. This is now, listen, Lenovo's had the X1 Carbon for years. That's been their flagship ThinkPad. This is the X1 Titanium, even better because titanium is obviously better than carbon. I mean, come on. It's their thinnest 2-in-1. It's 11.5 millimeters thick, which is not super thin for a laptop in general, but for a business 2-in-1 definitely is. And I love that taller screen, especially if you're working on like PDFs and Word documents and things like that. It actually makes it, or reading CES press releases 17 hours a day. I think it makes a difference having that extra top and bottom, whereas all the 16:9s were built around HD video, which is cool for consumers, but I think professionals are going to want that more square, more traditional aspect ratio. Also 5G support coming to that guy as well.
I like the pointer dot. I hate to admit it, it sort of dates you, but as far as laptops go, before the trackpads got really good, that was the only thing that would save you from not having to have an external mouse. I'm sure you remember those days well. All right. So Dan, that's trend number 1 was business. Sorry, hit us with trend number 2.
All right, let's talk about something that's more fun than just a business laptop. Dual screen laptops with more than one screen, even phones with more than one screen. We've seen this over the last couple of years. We had a bunch of prototypes last year. Now we have the second generation of some of these. We have advanced prototypes of some of these. One of my favorites is the new version of the Asus ZenBook Duo. And you can see right here, so it's got the regular screen on top and it's got the secondary screen right down here. The original ZenBook Duo, I think, had a smaller version of this. So this is larger. It's at a bit of a funky angle, so it actually matches up with the top screen better visually when you see it. And there's even a little fold out thing on the bottom to put it up at a nice angle and keep the airflow going. But I found something that is new for this version of it that I think is just awesome. And that is a partnership with Adobe, where they have put together Adobe control panels. And this is Premiere, and you've got a couple of jog wheels, a couple of controls. So if I start, let's say, here, if I start playing this video right here, there we go. See, I'm using the jog wheel.
Going back and forth. Ooh,
going back and forth, and there's a whole bunch of other controls as well. So as somebody who does a lot of Adobe stuff, I think that's awesome. Here's Photoshop. I threw in a picture of, I think, Vegas last year when we were there in person. And you can use, then this jog wheel becomes like a zoom. There we go. And then I put 2 layers together, and this jog wheel is like layer transparency right now. See, so there's the stage on one layer, and there's Las Vegas on the other layer. And I think that's super cool. One thing I don't love about this style of laptop is they always put the touchpad over on the side instead of the bottom because they don't have room for it. And you know what? We've just been conditioned by decades of where the touchpad is. You move that at your own peril because you're messing with many, many years of muscle memory. So that's my big complaint about that.
That's the first time I've seen something like that that looked actually useful. That little demo you did, yeah, it was impressive. That could work.
I feel like it's gimmicky until you find something that's actually practical. Even just like the touch bar on the MacBook, which I don't find that useful, except for like three things which are awesome, and that's like brightness and volume, and maybe like muting and unmuting. Basically, I mean, the touch bar is worth it just for that, and I love it for that. But a lot of the other stuff, you don't use every day. So if you have something you can actually use, I think that's awesome.
All right, Dan, so do you have another dual screen laptop you want to show us?
I have a completely different kind of dual screen laptop. And again, this is like a version 2 of something that we saw last year at CES. And it's this guy. It's the ThinkBook, not the ThinkPad, the ThinkBook Plus Gen 2. And it's got a regular laptop screen on the front. Okay, great. And then on the back, the entire back panel is an e-ink display. And last year's version was similar, but the display was much smaller. So if you close this display, it's going to go into its own little proprietary menu system. There it goes. And it'll show you, see if I have to flip it here, it'll show you your Outlook calendar and any emails that you have coming in. And it has links to a bunch of other Microsoft stuff. They actually have Kindle integrated now, which is super cool. And I love that the e-ink screen doesn't really use any power. So you can keep that open all the time and have your calendar and your notes and your reminders on there. And it's either using zero power, like a Kindle that's off, or just such minimal power that you don't even have to worry about it.
Very cool. That's a really interesting thing. And, for Lenovo, it's pretty experimental. I tend to think of Lenovo design as like design for grownups. Most of their stuff is not super experimental, but they put stuff through its paces and make sure the design is pretty solid. Like you wouldn't see them doing something like, shoving the touchpad over on the right. Their stuff tends to be very middle of the road, tested, tried. So this is kind of experimental for them, which, I'm not going to knock it because obviously if they put it on there, they've tried it with enough people and enough of their users that people found it useful enough that they would put it in a real product for sure.
Yeah, and it's a second generation of it also. So that shows that there's some legs to it. And I love that you can take notes here. I started to take some notes on here. And then you can take your written notes. It took a little practice to do that and save it as text. And then when you open the laptop back up into regular Windows, you can cut and paste that. You can paste that text because it's on your clipboard already. And you can draw stuff and doodle stuff too. I love e-ink. I feel like we don't use it in enough products. It's not super responsive. It's not for instant gratification. But if I was on a plane, I could just read my Kindle book on the back of this laptop and not worry about running down my laptop battery.
Fair enough. You've got a couple other trends though that you wanted to highlight as we're, wrapping this up, huh?
Well, what's the big thing that everybody is going out and buying over the past 9 or 10 months? The thing that you can't find in stock anywhere, it's a Chromebook, especially a nice Chromebook, because we figured out that everybody needs to have their own machine now. Every kid who's doing remote schooling needs their own laptop. You can't have a family one or one just for the kids anymore. So one that I liked a lot was this guy right here. This is the Acer Chromebook Spin 514. It's interesting in that, well, number one, it's a little bigger than a lot of Chromebooks. And number two, it's AMD Ryzen powered, which we don't see all that often. And of course, because it's called a Spin from Acer, it does this. But that's not why I'm excited about this one. I'm excited about this one because it's actually tough enough to survive at least most kids. It's a Milspec Chromebook. Some business laptops are, not a lot of consumer ones are. I haven't seen that many Chromebooks that are, though few, and it's got Gorilla Glass on the screen. So if this is not kid-proof, I don't know what is. And I think it's going to be $479, which is not bad for a big 15-inch, premium metal construction Chromebook.
Yeah. Dan, for the audience that doesn't know what Milspec is, why don't you, Milspec,
Yes.
why don't you explain that a little bit and why they're going to want that if they're given to a Chromebook, especially to like a kid under 10 or something, and maybe clumsy ones that are teenagers too.
So when people used to take laptops and tablets and things out in the field to an oil rig, to a construction site, at a hospital, you have to make sure that it's not going to let dust and grit get in the sides and ruin it. If you get a little wet, it's not going to ruin it. If you drop it from 15 inches onto a concrete surface, it's not going to break. There's different levels of it. So that military spec testing, because it's based on some military standards for procurement rules for the military, that's why they call it Milspec. So if you see a Milspec laptop, that basically means it's a rugged laptop. Those old Panasonic Toughbooks used to be like that. But now everybody makes at least one version of it, and I love seeing it in a Chromebook.
Good stuff. How about yet another Chromebook?
And of course, the other big Chromebook of the show is one I actually went to go see in person the other week. That's the Samsung Galaxy Chromebook 2. And you can tell Samsung is taking these seriously because they're putting the super fancy Galaxy name on them. They had one last year that was, a nice fancy Chromebook. I think it was like $1,000. Battery life wasn't great. This version aims to fix some of that. It's got a QLED screen now, which is the same technology as in their TVs. The more expensive one had a 4K OLED screen. So this is technically, I would say, not as nice, but it's going to save you a ton on battery life, and QLED looks great. It's supposedly louder because everyone complains that their small laptops are not very loud, and you can get an Intel Celeron or a Core i3, and I think that either one of those is going to be good for everyday students. And it's a cool bright red color, and if you just, everyone is drawn to, the eye is drawn to it, and it's really nicely made. I think it's one of the sharper looking Chromebooks that I've seen.
Last year, we went on the stage and brought this one up. We had this as one of our sort of picks for sort of the best looker of the year. It was really sharp. The red looks great. The metal as well is terrific. And it really kind of lives up to the Galaxy branding. I remember us saying last year, Dan. So it's good to see them dealing with a couple of the flaws that it had. And we pointed out several of them last year, including the price. It's nice to see them dealing with that and making what was an interesting product a lot more palatable to a lot more people potentially, and a lot more practical.
Definitely $550 and $700 versus $1,000 and better battery life. I feel like that's a winning combination there. I look forward to testing that one out a little bit more. And normally at these shows, we spend a lot of time talking about gaming laptops and gaming desktops and graphics cards because there's a lot of gaming tech at the show. This year, not so much. If this was a sports team, I would say this is a rebuilding year for PC gaming because the PlayStation 5 just came out. The Xbox Series X and Series S just came out. That's where a lot of the excitement is. But NVIDIA's here, new laptop graphics cards. And I think that the key takeaway for gaming laptops this year is that people are making gaming laptops that don't necessarily look like gaming laptops.
That's really interesting because when I think, even still to this day, when I think of gaming laptop, I think of some like big honking thick thing with sort of a weird kind of cover on the back, and something that you wouldn't want to take into a conference room in your office. But that's changing big time, isn't it?
It definitely is. And part of it is the standardization of the look of consumer and commercial and gaming laptops. You want one machine to do everything for you. So it's going to kind of have a middle of the road look. And also the fact that the parts inside are getting so power efficient, they don't need as many fans. The GPUs are very small and very powerful. The desktop 3000 series from NVIDIA is now available in laptops, just like they did with the 2000 series last year. So you can get away with something like this. Here's a new one from the show. This is the Acer Predator Triton 300. And you see, it's pretty thin for a gaming laptop. And it's certainly, it could be one of those Dell Latitudes we looked at before. There's nothing that really jumps out about it. There's a tiny little bit of branding here and there, but that's it. And inside, 11th gen Core i7, you can get the next gen NVIDIA GeForce, that's the 3000 series in here, and something this thin, which I think is great. And you're going to find 144 hertz screens in a lot of these because people like the higher refresh rate for gaming. So I think that these thinner gaming laptops that are not quite as over the top, maybe when you take out all the fans and the need for the heat pipes and the cooling, that gets rid of the excuse to have the big glowing lights inside and the monster logos and the alien logos. Just the fact that you can make it thinner, you can get rid of all that extra stuff used to cover up the bulk.
Very good. All right. Anything else on gaming, Dan?
Yeah, I'll show you one more from Lenovo, which is not known as a huge gaming brand, but they actually do a really nice job because they know so much about ergonomics and keyboards and touchpads and construction from their business laptops. All that stuff comes through into the other lines as well. This is the Legion Slim 7, and this is their super thin gaming laptop, so very similar specs to the other one. I like the little offset screen right here, so you have a little bit more angle choice there, and it just kind of looks sharp. And this is the one thing I have that's actually a mock-up. It's not a real screen on it, but it's here to show us what the product will look like when it's ready.
All right, Dan, so you summed up the 4 big trends from this year's CES in terms of laptops. We've got the workhorse business laptops, which of course everybody's using for work from home and educate from home. You've got the double screens, which is an innovative form factor idea that we've seen from a couple manufacturers. You've got the Chromebooks, because of course a lot of the education stuff is also happening on Chromebooks. And you've got the gaming laptops where, interestingly enough, some of these new hot new laptops are even stronger and more powerful than the latest PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X. So lots of great stuff to talk about this year. And Dan, thanks for running us through all of these.
Doing this show and showing everybody all the new laptops is always my favorite part of CES, and I was very worried we weren't going to be able to do it this year, at least not the right way. But the fact that we were able to get all of these laptops and bring them to you and show them to you and have this conversation where we talk about what's cool and what the trends are, I feel just because of that, this is a successful CES for me. So thank you, Jason Heiner. I'm Dan Ackerman, and thank you all for seeing the coolest and best laptops of CES 2021.